Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 1 is a short story-driven zombie game based off the Walking Dead comic book series, and it wasn't bad, especially considering this first part is free. Like I said earlier, it's a heavily story-driven game, as is the Telltale nature, with not a lot of combat, and the game is largely watching cutscenes or you searching areas and talking with people. This part starts off with a guy named Lee being drove to prison right as the zombie outbreak happens, and we later learn he's been convicted of murdering a senator who had adult involvements with his wife. The police officer driving him to prison crashes after hitting a zombie, and is killed by the undead. Lee escapes the area and meets a little girl named Clementine, whose parents are presumably dead, and Lee kinda just adopts her. The two start traveling together and meeting up with other survivors, and this part ends with a survivor group fortifying a hotel to try to last out the apocalypse. It's kinda hard to say much more than that as far as story goes in a recap, as the story does vary from player to player based off the decisions you make. And there are tough decisions, like sometimes I wouldn't see any dialogue options I liked and had to choose one I didn't like, or having to choose between saving one life or another. I'm guessing your actions have little to no impact on the final result of the level, but more of just how things get from A to B. That being said, there is some combat. Not much though, it's largely just pointing your reticle at something and pressing the necessary button, and various QuickTime events, although there were some puzzles here and there that took a bit of thinking to figure out. I must say this for the game, some sections did kinda just feel like tossed together plot armor, like how at one point on Herschel's farm, literally nobody noticed that zombies were creeping up to the fence to attack survivors, or another part where you had to grab a brick, but it was out of your reach, but within an arm's length of the guy beside you. Like, game, just let me ask the dude beside me to grab the brick. Or a really big plot armor point, at one point the survivors were holed up in a pharmacy that was locked with a combination padlock. Somehow, 3 survivors are able to get out and come back in without breaking the lock when it's later revealed that nobody knew the code. Just why? How? This makes no sense. If you're okay with just going with the flow and accepting stuff like this, the story is probably more enjoyable, but to me it was just a negative point to see this kind of thing recurring over and over again. Graphics wise, it kinda went for its own semi-realistic style that worked out okay, and I must say that overall, the voice actors for this game are really talented. Performance-wise, it got laggy on several occasions and actually froze completely at one point for several seconds. This episode took about 2 hours to beat on the topic of game length, and for free, it was worth my time, sure, but I doubt I'll purchase more from this series unless I find it pretty cheap. Earns a 7.4 out of 10 from me. And this is backwards compatible on newer Xbox models for anybody wondering. I guess I should mention that I never really watched The Walking Dead show much, but it didn't matter here, as again, it's based off the comics. But I do believe a couple characters, Glenn and Herschel, are in the show. I don't have many similar games to suggest really, but I did review the stealth horror survival game The Walking Dead Survival Instinct a while back, and I liked that game a lot more. Link to that review in the pinned comment and end card. Anyways, that's all from me for today, folks. Thank you for watching. I'm sure I probably irked someone with my review, as I know this game is held in a very high regard, but I just wasn't a huge fan of it. But feel free to drop your thoughts down in the comments. And for any newcomers to my channel, I mostly play, review, and discuss zombie and horror games, so feel free to check out some of my other content if that may be interest to you. Always remember that God loves you all very much. Have a great day. Peace.